Hey Chris, just calling to check in on the rules before we market across borders.
Hey, it's Susan. I just saw our competitor's data breach make the news. We need to meet.
Chris, can you update marketing on that recent tracking decision?
Chris, we're debating whether we need to go public with this.
We need help understanding the CNIL's DPIA whitelist.
The privacy impact
Chris, what about this privacy
Hey
framework?
Chris,
They
can
marked
you
on
on
the
the road?
recent tracking decision.
The world of privacy is on the line. And again, today, we answer the call.
You look fabulous. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good morning to you all. It really is wonderful to see you all here. So wonderful to see you all here. And for the first time ever at an IAPP event, we are live streaming our keynote stage. So welcome to all of you who are joining us online as well. My name is Trevor Hughes. I'm the president and CEO of the IAPP. And it really is an honor, a privilege, a delight to see so many of you back here for the Global Privacy Summit. It's been 3 years since last we gathered here in DC. We've navigated complex and troubled times. Indeed, we continue to work through challenges, the tragedies of the pandemic and conflict. And as I reflected back in preparing my remarks, I was reminded of a word in Portuguese that I learned as an exchange student many years ago, and that word is saudades. Saudades is a word that we don't really have in English. It speaks to a deep longing, something that you are missing. It is heartfelt, it is nostalgic, it is emotional. And I think all of us have been feeling saudade for these past years. Saudade for the people we have lost. With so many members around the world, it is undoubtable that we have people who have been lost, family and friends. And though not due to the pandemic, people like Joel Riedenberg, Ian Kerr, Giovanni Butarelli, and Kurt Wimmer are no longer with us or here at this event, and we miss them dearly. We also feel saudade for the pace and cadence of our lives that we lived before the pandemic. We have saudade for the connection and energy of events like this. I think the last 2-3 years certainly have been filled with this sense of deep longing, of missing something. But just last month, I was in Paris for the Data Protection Intensive, the IAPP's event in France, and I learned a new word. It's a French word, and we also don't have a translation in English. It's retrouvailles. And this word means the joy of reconnecting after a time apart. And aren't we feeling that now? This idea of retrouvailles. The idea that we have reconnected. In fact, 3 years ago, when we were on this stage, we celebrated 50,000 members. 50,000 members. In fact, we made a bit of a deal of it. We were counting up to who member 50,000 was going to be. It turned out it was an associate at KPMG in Sydney, Australia. And it was a great surprise to him when the managing director of his office walked down the hall and said, guess what? You're flying to DC this week, and they're going to give you a golden badge on the stage for being member 50,000 of the IAPP. Well, today, as we gather here again, filled with that sense of retrouvailles, the joy of reconnecting with each other, I'm immensely proud to share with you that we have reached another major milestone. Yeah, not quite 75,000 members. That close. And as CEO, I would have loved to have been able to announce 75,000 members, but you know what? I'll take 74,168 because that's really remarkable growth over the past 3 years. We have grown almost 50%, including through 2 years of the pandemic, and that is a phenomenal thing. Our growth is a reflection of the complexity and urgent demand to address privacy in the digital economy. You, privacy professionals, do the work of privacy. As technology and innovation move data in ever more remarkable ways, you are critical to managing the real-world complications so creatively described by Malcolm Gladwell last night. In so many ways, you, privacy professionals, are the guardians of trust of the digital economy. It turns out that we may need more of you. We're all aware that under GDPR, there's a requirement for a mandatory data protection officer, and so the IAPP went out to data protection authorities just 2.5 years ago and said, how many data protection officers have actually registered in your jurisdiction in Europe? And we found something quite remarkable. There are 500,000 data protection officers registered in Europe. 500,000. When we looked at the LGPD in Brazil, we estimated the need in that marketplace and found that we would need approximately 50,000 people who have the skills and the knowledge to do the type of work that is required to manage privacy today. With the passage of PIPL in China, we looked at that market and realized that there would be a need for another 500,000 skilled privacy and data protection professionals in that market. Add to that the possibility of a law in India soon this year. Add to that, maybe sometime soon, fingers crossed, a national privacy law here in the United States. And guess what? We have a talent shortage. We need more professionals to do the work of privacy around the world, many hundreds of thousands of privacy professionals. At the IAPP, we think it's part of our job to help you do that work, build those professionals. Our training and certifications certainly are a phenomenal way to dive into our field. We are accredited with our certifications under ISO 17024. Our certs provide a solid foundation to start, to build, to continue to grow a privacy career. But it turns out that we need even more talent than that. And I'm really happy to share with you something that we didn't get to share 2 years ago because of the pandemic, that the IAPP Board of Directors, in celebration of our 20th anniversary in 2020, created a $5 million endowed scholarship fund, the Weston Scholars Fund. This fund recognizes privacy students around the world, yes, in law schools, but also in computer science schools, in business schools, in programs where they are teaching information privacy. We recognize the top student in the program, and it's an annual award that will recur every year. We've already given out 60 of these awards in the past year. We should have 100 that we've granted by the end of this year. And on an ongoing basis, we expect that we'll be able to give out over 150 awards globally every single year. But here's what I'm really happy about. It's this. I want you to look at this picture, because these are the bright, shiny, brilliant, employable future privacy professionals. In so many ways, these are the faces of the future of our profession. And I have every expectation that these faces are going to be on our stages. They're going to be in our advisory boards. In fact, I will be reporting to some of these faces on our board of directors sometime soon. I really am proud of the Weston Scholar Program, and I look forward to us building future generations of privacy pros with higher educational institutions around the world. Here at the IAPP, our mission is to help you do your jobs. And so every single day, our team works to build the information, the research, the connections that you need to get your work done. In fact, last year, in the midst of the pandemic, without the ability to really run a lot of in-person conferences, we ran 1,000 virtual offerings. Every single day of the week, there's something happening in the world of the IAPP. Almost all of them are free with your membership. We have 150 chapters in cities around the world. We have almost 1,000 volunteers across all of our programs that are doing work for you. Every single day, we write thousands of words in our editorial team and our research teams to give you what you need to get your jobs done. In fact, we come to work each day to build the things that you need to do your work each day. It really is wonderful to be here. It is such a joy to have this sense of reconnection. But I do have to note that I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Ukraine and what's happening and the tragedies there. As the invasion of Ukraine started, the IAPP immediately reached out to our members on the ground in the country. We graced their memberships. They're not going to get a bill from the IAPP for a very, very long time. We offered them anything that we could do, anything that the IAPP does that might help them. Very few of them have reached back out to us, but we certainly send our thoughts and our support to those 68 members of the IAPP, privacy professionals who would love to be doing data protection work right now and are struggling with far greater concerns. But we also realized that there was an opportunity for the IAPP to do something powerful here at this event. And so I'm really happy to share that for each of you sitting in this hall, and it turns out there's a lot of you, the IAPP will be donating $10 to the World Central Kitchen. $10 for each one of you. We kind of made this choice before we announced Tim Cook was coming, and then the room really filled up, so that actually cost us a fair bit. But if you don't know the World Central Kitchen, you absolutely should. The World Central Kitchen is an amazing global charity founded by Chef Jose Andres, who is Spanish-born but lives and works here in DC. His restaurant Jaleo is fantastic. I recommend it to you all. But this charity does something incredibly simple. Its mission is to feed people in crisis. And on the borders of Ukraine and in Ukraine today, they are feeding over 100,000 people. And so I am really, really happy to share that we will be making a donation over $40,000 and might push $50,000 on behalf of all of you. I'm also really happy to share that one of our title sponsors, Big ID, has stepped up with a $10,000 donation on top of that. Thank you, Dimitri and Big ID. And here's the part where all of you come in. On your behalf, we're making a donation of $10. I'd like you all to match it. I'd like you all to donate $10 to World Central Kitchen. The website is right there, wck.org/IAPP. $10 ain't much, but it makes a massive difference. And to all of you who are watching the live stream for free, this is absolutely worth $10, and so I encourage all of you to donate as well. Okay, I know what you're really here for. So now, it's my privilege to introduce our first keynote speaker, Tim Cook. In nearly 25 years at Apple, and after more than a decade as CEO, Tim has had a unique view into the evolution of the global privacy landscape. From the beginnings of the smartphone era to the biggest policy debates of recent years, Tim has shaped Apple's approach to the issues facing our profession. Today, he's one of the world's most widely recognized executives. He's a clear and thoughtful voice in the privacy field, one that many of us heard years ago in Brussels, where he appeared with his good friend and our good friend, the late Giovanni Butarelli. There are a few companies that influence the environment in which we operate as much as Apple, and there are a few leaders who are as central to the future of privacy as Tim. For all of these reasons, I am thrilled and grateful that he's here with us today. Please join me in welcoming to the IAPP Global Privacy Summit, Tim Cook.
Had to have high hopes for a living, shooting for the stars when I couldn't make a killing. Didn't have a dime, but I always had a vision. Always had high hopes.
Thank you.
Had to have high hopes for a living. Didn't know how.
Thank you. Good morning. It's a privilege to be here with all of you in the nation's capital. And I must say, it's so nice to finally gather in person. I want to thank the IAPP for bringing us together and for the vital work you do every day. And thank you especially to Trevor for your leadership. The fight to protect privacy is not an easy one, but it is one of the most essential battles of our time. And we at Apple are proud to stand alongside all those who are working to advance privacy rights around the world. As a company, we are profoundly inspired by what technology can make possible. But we know, too, that technology is neither inherently good nor inherently bad. It is what we make of it. It is a mirror that reflects the ambitions and intentions of the people who use it, the people who build it, and the people who regulate it. Out of this paradigm have grown two disparate, coinciding realities. One where technology unlocks humanity's full creative potential and ushers in a new era of possibility. The other where technology is exploited to rob humanity of that which is foundational, our privacy itself. And that is a loss we cannot accept. Because it is our privacy that gives us the freedom to explore different ideas, to indulge our curiosity, to dream big and take chances and make mistakes. It is privacy that lets us be and become ourselves without being afraid that our every move will be seen, recorded, or leaked. A world without privacy is less imaginative, less empathetic, less innovative, less human. At Apple, that is not the world we want to live in. We believe that privacy is a fundamental human right, one that is essential to our vision of a world where technology enriches people's lives. And to help create that world, we are fighting for privacy in multiple areas of our work. The first area is a familiar one. It is a commitment to protecting people from a data industrial complex built on a foundation of surveillance. At this very moment, companies are mining data about the details of our lives, the shops and restaurants we frequent, the causes we support, the websites we choose to read. These companies defend their actions as pure of intention, as the work of better serving us with more targeted experiences. But they don't believe we should have a real choice in the matter. They don't believe that they should need our permission to peer so deeply into our personal lives. Who would stand for such a thing if it were unfolding in the physical world? Imagine a stranger following you as you take your child to school, holding a camera outside the driver's side window, recording everything you do. Imagine you open your computer and the stranger is suddenly watching your every keystroke. You wouldn't call that a service. You would call it an emergency. In the digital world, it is one too. So we've given our users the features they need to have more control over their private information. We've given them the simple but revolutionary ability to decide for themselves whether apps can track their activity across other companies' apps and websites. We've given them the tools to shield their locations and hide their email addresses. And we've given them greater peace of mind knowing that their apps they download from the App Store are held to our strong privacy standards. The second area is our battle against an array of dangerous actors, from sophisticated hackers and ransomware gangs to the everyday con artists who pervade our digital world. We've long said that security is the foundation of privacy, because there is no privacy in a world where your private data can be stolen with impunity. Never before has this threat been more profound or its consequences more visible. From scams and social engineering attacks to massive data breaches and targeted disinformation, the dangers we face do more than compromise our data. They compromise our freedom to be human. And there is nothing we take more seriously than safeguarding our users from the threat these attacks represent. It's why we minimize the amount of data we collect and work to maximize how much is processed directly on people's devices. Because we know that centralized readable data is vulnerable data, and we want to reduce the risk to our users. It's why personal data on iPhone is encrypted by default, while health data, passwords, and home security camera recordings that people store on iCloud are end-to-end encrypted, so that not even Apple can look at them. It's why we continue to stand up for encryption without backdoors, because we know that if you install a backdoor, anyone can use it. And it's why we built such rigorous security protections into the App Store from the beginning, so that people can be confident they aren't downloading malware onto their devices. But I fear that we could soon lose the ability to provide some of those protections. And that brings me to our third area of concern: regulations that could put our privacy and security at risk. To be clear, Apple is in favor of privacy regulation. We have long been supporters of the GDPR, and we applaud the many countries that have enacted privacy laws of their own. We also continue to call for a strong, comprehensive privacy law in the United States. And we are grateful to all the global leaders who are working to advance privacy rights, including the rights of children in particular. But we are deeply concerned about regulations that would undermine privacy and security in service of some other aim. Here in Washington and elsewhere, policymakers are taking steps in the name of competition that would force Apple to let apps onto iPhone that circumvent the App Store through a process called sideloading. That means data-hungry companies would be able to avoid our privacy rules and once again track our users against their will. It would also potentially give bad actors a way around the comprehensive security protections we put in place, putting them in direct contact with our users. And we have already seen the vulnerability that creates on other companies' devices. Early in the pandemic, for example, there were reports of people downloading what appeared to be legitimate COVID tracing apps only to have their devices infected with ransomware. But these victims weren't iPhone users, because the scheme directly targeted those who could install apps from websites that lacked the App Store's defenses. Proponents of these regulations argue that no harm would be done by simply giving people a choice. But taking away a more secure option will leave users with less choice, not more. And when companies decide to leave the App Store because they want to exploit user data, it could put significant pressure on people to engage with alternate app stores where their privacy and security may not be protected. Now, I want to make something very clear to all of you. Apple believes in competition. We value its role in driving innovation and pushing us all forward. And we appreciate that supporters of these ideas have good intentions. But if we are forced to let unvetted apps onto iPhone, the unintended consequences will be profound. And when we see that, we feel an obligation to speak up and to ask policymakers to work with us to advance goals that I truly believe we share without undermining privacy in the process. We will continue to make our voices heard on this issue. We will continue to advocate on behalf of our users and what they deserve. And we hope all of you in the privacy community will join our efforts to make sure that regulations are crafted, interpreted, and implemented in a manner that protects people's fundamental rights. Because as much as we all stand to lose in a world without privacy, I also know how much we stand to gain if we get this right. Today, the promise and potential of technology have never been greater. The innovation landscape across the globe has never been more exciting. And within our sight is a future where technology enables humanity to flourish like never before. At Apple, we envision a future where technology inspires people to be healthier and more creative, where it opens up new avenues of learning and opportunity, and where it helps all of us connect more deeply with the people we love and the world that surrounds us. It is a future where technology empowers people without intruding into their lives and serves as a unifying force for good. And it is a future that together, I believe, we have the power to achieve. As you may know, this year marks the 50th anniversary of privacy luminary Alan Weston's landmark study, Databanks in a Free Society. Weston concluded that while the erosion of privacy was a legitimate fear, it was not an inevitable consequence of technology. What is collected, for what purposes, with whom information is shared, he wrote, are all matters of policy choice, not technological determinism. He said that man cannot escape his social or moral responsibilities by murmuring feebly that the machine made me do it. In so many ways, our world today bears little resemblance to the world of a half-century ago. But those words strike me as more relevant now than ever before. This is a pivotal moment in the battle for privacy. As we look to the future, it is clear that technology will continue to shape our world. But the impact that technology makes on society is not predetermined. The loss of privacy is not inevitable. And those of us who create technology and make the rules that govern it have a profound responsibility to the people we serve. Let us embrace that responsibility. Let us protect our data and secure our digital world. And let us declare that privacy cannot and will not become a relic of the past. Thank you so very much for having me this morning. Thank you.
Muy buenos días, tengan todas y todos ustedes. En esta ocasión, tengo el gran honor y privilegio de compartir este espacio con mi querida amiga y compañera Zahra Mosawi. Zahra es una mujer que con muchos esfuerzos ha luchado por más de 2 décadas por el reconocimiento de los derechos de las mujeres y su empoderamiento desde diferentes frentes, como periodista, activista y en los últimos años comisionada de la Comisión de Acceso a la Información de Afganistán. Su tarea no ha sido sencilla, pero en 2018 el gobierno de Afganistán modificó la Ley de Acceso a la Información, lo que representa un logro muy importante, tanto de la autoridad como de las organizaciones civiles de su país, pues se colocó ese año en el primer lugar del ranking de las mejores leyes de transparencia del mundo, por la solidez de un marco jurídico que garantiza el derecho de acceso a la información. Zahra es una mujer que está convencida del poder de la información, que sabe que es una herramienta clave para reducir la corrupción y contar con un gobierno responsable y transparente. Si bien hace algunos meses no tenía el gusto de conocerla, hoy nos une un sentimiento y objetivo en común: la búsqueda por el reconocimiento irrestricto de los derechos humanos de las mujeres en el mundo, así como la convicción de que hoy en día la transparencia y el derecho de acceso a la información pública se han convertido en pilares de facto para la rendición de cuentas y el buen gobierno de cualquier nación. Mujer de luchas admirable, preparada, con su propia voz, reflejo de lo que por años a nivel mundial se ha venido buscando: la libre expresión de las ideas y una apertura de oportunidades para las mujeres que contribuya y motive el avance hacia una sociedad más libre y justa. Hoy, nuestra apreciable Zahra nos compartirá su talento y conocimiento para conocer las mejores prácticas para garantizar la libertad de expresión y el acceso a la información en nuestra sociedad. Sin mayor preámbulo, cedo el uso de la voz a mi estimada Zahra Mosawi. Es un gran gusto, Zahra.
I hope you are doing great this morning. On this occasion, I have the great honor and privilege of sharing this forum with my dear friend and colleague, Zahra Mosawi. Zahra is a woman who has strived endlessly for the recognition of women's rights and their empowerment. As a journalist, an activist, and over the last years, as Commissioner of Afghanistan Access to Information Commission. Her endeavor has not been an easy task. Still, in 2018, the government of Afghanistan amended the Access to Information law, representing a significant achievement for both her country's authorities and civil organizations. That year, Afghanistan ranked first on the world's best transparency laws, which strengthened the legal framework which ensures the right to information. Zahra is a woman who believes in the power of information, who knows that it's an important tool to reduce corruption and to have a transparent and responsible government. Although I did not have the pleasure of knowing her until a few months ago, there is a sentiment and goal bond between us today: the pursuit of the full recognition of the human rights of women throughout the world, and believing that transparency and the right to access to public information have become today's de facto pillars for any nation's accountability and good government. She's a woman of admirable struggles, highly educated, and with her own voice, a reflection of what the world has sought for many years: the free expression of ideas and the opening of opportunities for women, which contributes and drives progress toward a freer and more just society. Today, our dear Zahra shares her talent and knowledge with us to learn the best practices to guarantee freedom of expressions and access to information in our society. Without further ado, I hand the floor to my dear Zahra Mosawi. I'm pleased to share this forum with you. Thank you very much.
Good morning. This is my honor to be here with you. I want to share my story with you. It is a story of 2 decades of struggle for human rights and freedom. I was a child when I first left my country. I had to leave because Afghanistan was in war due to the rise of the Taliban, which made living conditions unstable and dangerous. Women had no voice during the Taliban regime. They did not allow us to work or get an education. We were not even able to leave our homes without a man from our family at our sides. Under the Taliban rule, there was no human rights, no freedom of speech, and no free media. Forced to flee my country, I was living as a refugee in Iran. Because I was a refugee, I had no right to education or other human and citizenship rights. I was a complete stranger in another land. After the 9/11 terrorist attacks in the United States, NATO and US military started their mission to fight global terrorism in Afghanistan. They defeated Taliban and destroyed Al-Qaeda. After a long time, I was able to come home. We could finally enjoy freedom in our country. I returned with lots of goals and motivation to begin a new life. For 2 decades, I was able to live that life with freedom and women's rights. I was finally a citizen with all the human rights that we all are entitled to have. I was able to vote and participate in the decision-making process of our government. I went to university and received my education. Then I started work in media as a journalist. I was a good writer because I had lots of stories to tell about my people. It was the stories of people seeking human rights and women's fights for gender equality. For more than a decade, I wrote about human rights and women's empowerment. I became director of Irshad al-Naswan, the first woman magazine in Afghanistan, which was originally established in 1921. It was the greatest honor of my entire life. I published lots of women's stories. In turn, I provided opportunities for women to receive an education and to share their stories and experiences with other Afghan women. I had known it was a big responsibility, but from the bottom of my heart, I did it for the women of my country. In 2018, Afghanistan's government amended the Access to Information law, which it had first approved in 2014. It was a significant achievement from our government and for civil society organizations in my country. We had dealt with years of government corruption, and under an international commitment, our government forced to amend the law. Finally, in 2019, I was appointed as a commissioner of Afghanistan Access to Information Commission, the AIC, after I completed my sociology master while studying abroad in India. According to Canada's Center of Law and Democracy, in 2018, Afghanistan's access to information law are ranked as the best of its kind in the world. We had dealt with years of government corruption. And we need to practice to reduce corruption. We had 5 commissioners, including myself, in charge of auditing the implementation of access to information law. It was not an easy job. It was a new independent government institution with a small budget. In fact, we started from scratch, and in practice, government officials gave no commitment to implement the law. However, we worked hard to make my people's government accountable. We advocated for freedom of information and concentrated on raising awareness about the law. We traveled around the country to help our people understand the power of information and to learn their rights as a citizen. Sometimes our government refused to abide by our decisions. And since our office had a small budget and rule of law was not improved, some government officials with strong links to the president wanted to slow our progress to complete our mandate, which was to make my government more accountable and transparent to its people. But we had a great team at the AIC. My colleagues believed in the power of information. We believed information was the primary key to reducing corruption. We believed right to information was key to transparency and accountability, and it was what we really needed for good governance. Our citizens' right to this information was an important tool to help rein in rampant government corruption. I believed right to information organizations should be recognized as anti-corruption bodies, and we had a good collaboration with all the institutions in my country that were charged with ending corruption. Yet, last year, our progress was halted. We finally lost everything when the Taliban rose back to the power and took over the country on August 15, 2021. Since then, the Taliban systematically destroyed our democracy. They took away our freedom of speech, our access to information, and once again, they took away our rights as women. Of course, our government was responsible for what happened to our democracy. They refused to release information about the peace negotiations with the Taliban. They didn't pay attention to concerns of our politicians or share information with journalists at the time of crisis. Important information about our government was not getting out to the people. Freedom of speech and free media were the biggest achievements of our government. And during the last 2 decades, multiple media organizations practiced freedom in their functions. Investigative journalism played an important role on shaping the structure of our politics and governance. But during the peace negotiations, an increased insecurity and spread of the Taliban threat, our government made the situation difficult for journalists. They misused the definition of national security and national interest to restrict the journalists. Our government chose secrecy. They preferred to hide information about the peace negotiations with the Taliban and keep the state of our military secret. They denied the IC's concern about the many requests for information from the Ministry of Interior and the peace negotiations. This led to our current disaster. I believe the collapse of Kabul was rooted to secrecy of that critical information which was integral to the outcome of this tragic story. We lost, and now I, like millions of women from my country, are back to the same situation we found ourselves in more than 20 years ago. I am once again a refugee in another land. The Taliban claim to be committed to human rights and freedom of speech in order to gain world recognition. They pretend they have no enmity with civil rights, freedom of speech, and free flow of information. But in reality, that is not true. Reports of killing and arrests of journalists, human rights activists, and women protesting, as well as banning of girls' school and imposing restrictions on media in recent months, reveal the true face of the Taliban. Evidence shows the Taliban wanted to silence the voice of my people. They want to rule by force and dictatorship. Yet, in the face of this repression and in the wake of all that we lost last year, one thing we did not lose is our hope. And it is my hope one day soon we will rebuild our democracy so that our children can live in a free Afghanistan. Thank you.
So first of all, I would like to thank Zahra Mosawi for her very inspiring presentation. My name, very well deserved. My name is Anna Seiter. I'm the Chief Privacy Officer of eBay. In addition to that, I'm the Secretary of the IAPP Board of Directors. As the next speaker, I would like to welcome Didier Reynders, the European Commissioner for Justice. As the European Union's lead for justice, Commissioner Reynders ensures the implementation and the enforcement of GDPR and promotes Europe's fundamental right to personal data protection, becoming a global role model. Commissioner Reynders' works look to maximize the potential of new digital technologies to improve European justice systems, to empower consumers, and to protect citizen rights. Commissioner Reynders actually intended to present today here in DC in person, but given the current horrible developments in Europe, Commissioner Reynders was compelled to stay in Brussels. However, we are very grateful for him taking the time to record an address for the IAPP's membership, which we will play now. Commissioner Reynders, the floor, or rather the screen, is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. Let me start by thanking the organizers for the invitation to speak at this year's Global Privacy Summit. It is a pleasure to address you again, despite the fact that I'm unfortunately not able to join you in person in DC. The International Association of Privacy Professionals by now counts over 50,000 members, if I'm not mistaken. This success is a clear, tangible sign that privacy has become a defining issue of our time, and an issue which is at the core of the activities of so many organizations, from civil society to business and government. This is also reflected in the broad range of topics that are on the agenda of the conference, from the protection of health data to international data flows and trustworthy artificial intelligence. These same topics are also at the heart of EU digital policies. For us, privacy sets the foundation for a human-centric digital transition. This applies to all our digital initiatives, from creating a fair data economy, addressing online illegal content, to keeping our online markets safe. We want the European Union to be at the forefront of a data-driven society at home and globally. However, this will never come at the cost of our values and fundamental rights. There is so much to discuss about, and I see that you have gathered so many interesting speakers from around the world. But I suspect that when it comes to my intervention, what you really want to hear is an update on our work on EU-US data flows. On the 25th of March, President von der Leyen and President Biden announced that the EU and US reach an agreement in principle on a new data transfer framework. This announcement is the outcome of 1 year of intense negotiations that Secretary Raimondo and I led. Together with Gina Raimondo and our two teams, we had very detailed discussions to explore different solutions that could be developed within the US legal system. Our objective from the beginning was to develop a solid arrangement that addresses the requirements of the EU Highest Court. We have now reached an agreement on the key elements of a new framework. In particular, the future arrangement will provide for safeguards limiting access to data by American intelligence authorities to what is necessary and proportionate to protect national security, and the establishment of a redress system with binding authority to direct remedial measures for complaints brought by Europeans regarding access to their data by US national security services. This is certainly an important step towards the development of a successor arrangement to the Privacy Shield. But the work continues. We now need to finalize the details of this agreement in principle and translate them into legal text. In particular, this requires an executive order by the US President, as well as other implementing regulations. On that basis, the Commission will be able to propose the adoption of an adequacy decision. As you may know, to adopt such a decision in the European Union, we need to go through a multi-step process that involves an opinion from the European Data Protection Board, a vote of our member states, and scrutiny by the European Parliament. It is difficult to give a precise timeline at this stage, but we expect that this process could be finalized by the end of this year. While we still have a lot of work ahead of us, I do believe that this agreement in principle confirms once more how much the European Union and the US can achieve by building on their shared values. This is true in the area of privacy, as in so many others. Just a few days after the announcement on transatlantic data flows, I issued a joint statement with FTC Chair Khan on an ambitious EU-US dialogue on consumer protection. We want to reinvigorate this dialogue, especially on the impact of technological developments to maximize the mutual benefits of policy and regulatory cooperation. In this context, we will look also at issues at the interplay between privacy and data protection. When the challenges we are facing are the same and are increasingly of a global nature, the best thing two like-minded partners such as the EU and the US can do is to intensify their cooperation. With this, let me conclude and wish you a very fruitful Global Privacy Summit. Thank you very much.
What a way to start the first full day of the summit with 3 dynamic speakers. So a big thank you to Tim Cook, Zahra Mosawi, and Commissioner Didier Reynders for reminding us and the world that privacy matters. My name is Faith Myers. I am the Chief Privacy Officer and Senior Vice President at McKesson Corporation and the Treasurer of the IAPP Board of Directors. And I'm going to do what I told my daughter that I wouldn't, which is use my reading glasses. Earlier today, the IAPP was honored to announce the recipient of this year's Leadership Award, which recognizes a global leader in the field of privacy and data protection. It's bestowed upon an individual or an organization that's demonstrated a commitment furthering the field of privacy, promoting recognition of privacy issues, and advancing the growth and the visibility of our profession. Elizabeth Denham does just that and more. Elizabeth recently ended her 5-year term as UK Information Commissioner, and before that, she held the position of Information and Privacy Commissioner for British Columbia, Canada, and Assistant Privacy Commissioner of Canada. She recently joined Baker McKenzie law firm to advise their clients on data protection best practices, strategies, and wider technology regulation trends. So would you please join me in congratulating Elizabeth Denham as IAPP Privacy Leadership Award winner for 2022. Congratulations again, Elizabeth. I would now like to announce the 2022 IAPP Privacy Vanguard Award winners. This award annually recognizes outstanding leadership, knowledge, and creativity in the field of privacy and data protection. This year, the IAPP is pleased to present this award to an exceptional individual in each of the following regions: EMEA, Asia, Oceania, North America, and Latin America. For EMEA, Dan Orhoff, owner of Orhoff Law and founding member of Strand Advisory. For Asia, Abhishek Tiwari, manager of IT advisory and digital consulting for KPMG. For Oceania, Anna Johnston, principal with Salinger Privacy. For North America, Barbara Lawyer, Chief Operating Officer and Senior Strategist at the Information Accountability Foundation. And for Latin America, Pablo Palasi, partner at Allende and Brea. Please join us in congratulating Dan, Abhishek, Anna, Barbara, and Pablo. So with a full day ahead of us, I encourage everyone to take advantage of what the summit has to offer. We've been waiting 3 years for this. There's a lot of ground to cover. There'll be breakout sessions in both the Marriott Marquis and in the Convention Center. So please try to maximize your schedule and plan accordingly. And then tonight, the Privacy Bash of the Year. You must be there at the Marriott Marquis at 5:30 in the hotel lobby. We will celebrate the privacy profession with food, fun, drinks, and friends, and you can prioritize that in whatever order is most meaningful for you, but you must be there. So now we're heading into the networking break in the exhibit hall before the breakout sessions begin promptly at 11. So I wish you a good conference and enjoy your day. Thank you.